67% market share, and balance 23 are in that 30% market that we have. That's the kind of play we have. We were in 2009 when some of us have joined, were let's say at about 8th or 9th rank as the regulator publishes on the website. It's a published data, so I can talk about. And as we speak, last 3-4 years, 2-3 years, we are enjoying the rank of about top 2, top 3 in the private players, correct? Now, this is one set of facts. The second, we have the people issue as the organization issue, by the way. Because if you look at in life insurance industry, we're not producing anything, THING, correct? What we are offering is the service, that too of a future benefit. So we check in advance and offer kind of confidence for the future as the life insurance. Now, 55% of my OPEX is the people cost. I'm also giving you numbers, correct? So that you know why we should not separate people from business in certain, industries. So 55% of my OPEX, the operational expenses, is the people cost. Now, I have a bucket of about 11,000 frontline salespeople and about, let's say, 3,500 or 4,000, the managers and above. So the two buckets, correct? The managers and above bucket, we have what have you, in terms of the HAY, PRP, Potential, Mercer, all of that. So the attrition level there is like any other MNC, which is about 15 to 20% per annum. And the other bucket, don't get surprised, which is about 11,000 people. The attrition level there has been in the private industry, I would not talk about only my company, anything between 80 to 140% per annum.
Whatever that means.
Yeah.
This is the agency channel.
No, talking about the frontline sales across the channel.
So your tied channel.
Yes, tied channel is one channel which is a proprietary channel. But you have the banca, you have direct. But let me not segregate. Okay. I think today it's probably similar in most of the channels, correct? Today. So what does it mean? So I have 11,000 people, which means I lose about 12,000 people every year, and I recruit 12,000 people every year. It's a factory. So this is one part of the fact. Earlier what I've said, I'm number one in the industry in terms of the best places to work for and all that, correct? So you still have business to manage. Now, one can say the attrition of 100% is an HR issue, correct? So will you agree? Is it HR issue? Yes or no? It's actually a business issue. And let me tell you, in fact, one of our strategic intent as the company, which actually is discussed at the board level, is how can I bring this, let's say, 10% attrition per month down by a couple of percent. Yeah? What does it mean? It means that if I can bring down this attrition by 2% or 3% per month, my profitability, my probably top line will go up by...
You should.
I'm going to disturb this thought for a minute only. And sorry, I'm not disturbing your thought process. So please continue.
Yeah, I'm giving the facts.
There has been a sufficient amount of research done now in the world to indicate that by 2035, the average number of job changes that people will make is equal to 35. The problem lies that we design organizations for lifelong cycles of employment. Absolutely. And the inventory is taking 35 turns.
Yeah.
Now, do you see where the problem is not in reducing attrition?
Yes.
Because attrition is the reality of the market. Your problem is that you have not redesigned your life cycles which you are employing.
So coming back to his basic question, so what have you done? Correct? So you can't keep creeping, correct? You are still profitable, you are still one of the best companies to work for in the insurance industry, all of that. So I think what we really looked at, accepted the situation. Had it been so easy, we would have solved it long back, correct? We are one of the best brands. And it's an industry situation. So there are ecosystem issues, outside in, inside out. So what have we done? So we said, okay, as an industry, should we do something in the ecosystem, create talent, get into the colleges, get into the universities? Can you actually, bring in a little attractiveness about this industry to start with? Because there is an attractiveness issue in this industry, to be very honest. Yeah. While manager and above, they're very happy because they've now reached that stage. But if you ask any of the managers who would like to work as the frontline salesperson, probably they will not. Yeah. So we are working on that. So we are actually getting into creation of a talent, okay, very innovatively. And I think we are getting successful there as well. Of course, you can't have the solution working for the next month or the next year. It will take a few years' time. So that is what we're working on, and I think it's working. Let's say a couple of percentage attrition came down. Last year we were about 16% per month or 15% per month. We came down to about 10% per month, this year.
Fantastic.
So it's a huge, let's say, financial, upside so far as our balance sheet is concerned. So what I'm trying to put forth is that, you have to work with the context. You have to bring in that, let's say, so-called innovativeness in the VUCA world, as we have. And the topmost requirement for me, I would, talk about it at the middle of the night, is the leadership. Now, leadership is little motherhood. But for the relevant context, relevant situation, do we have leaders to actually, with the agility, maturity, ability, what all you talked about, correct, for that particular context? And the leadership is very easy to speak, but I think we don't have them, correct? So how do you actually bring them is what we are working on very constantly. So if you ask me and my CEO, about 65% of our time we spend on looking at the leaders. I'm just simply putting, the English words, looking at the leaders, understanding the inventory. If you have, we don't have. Just to give you one more data point, just before I close and give it to Ajay, is in 2009, we were saying that we don't have leaders to get promoted. But in 2011, after a lot of interventions, Suresh, we promoted 26 people from the same pool, with the CEO saying that these are the people I want to promote in the industry. So look at the, needle moving. So I don't want to actually, say everything what we've done. Of course, we will speak during the break. But this is what we've done. So how do you actually make, business believe that you had a kind of perceived to be no leader there in terms of those 200 people?
So here's a personal question to you. How many days in a year are you spending in the market, in the field with your sales guys?
Good question. I think you should look at my calendar. I'm not in Mumbai, not in my office. Every second week I'm in the field, me and my CEO.
Why do you do that?
Because as Steve very rightly said, seldom any technology will replace the handshake. Seldom, let me repeat, seldom any technology will replace the handshake
So
and the pat on
as
the
an
back.
HR leader, why is that handshake important to you? Why do you want to do that?
When I say, do you have the leaders? Do you have the inventory? One of my processes says that the CEO and of course 4 of us, we look at 200 leaders 5 days continuously for 10 hours a day. To look at them on the screen in terms of the biography. Another 5 days are spent in giving personal feedback, inviting them into the corporate office. Which means, what does it mean? Which means we believe that the CEO has to know at least 2 levels below person by name to start with. And you can't know someone by name unless you're really able to observe them in the field, off the field, during the presentation, during the reviews. That is how you know how are they being perceived as the leader. Correct? And you take a call saying that he's potentially ready to get to the next level in next about 6 to 12 months or otherwise. I think I completely agree with Steve that, number of processes you can bring in to help, but ultimately what matters is your relevant conversations with the next line person.
That's
relevant
one.
conversation.
That's one. The other question for you is, do you understand how money is made in your business?
Absolutely.
You understand ROB,
Absolutely.
BNB,
Absolutely.
AEV?
Absolutely. There is one rule in our organization now. I can say that it's also, the creation of last 3-4 years. Every people's person spends about 25 minutes to start with on a dashboard review early in the morning.
Okay.
Before they go to the field to talk to people, they will look at the dashboard as to what is in red, what is the number, what is in green. Talk about green to improve the red and the amber. And then talk to people. People understand people better.
Rajendra,
So it's a balance.
Do you find that all of this is giving you the heft and the credibility to talk in your organization about an HR strategy, people strategy, which is connected to and relevant to what the business is, because you understand how the money is made, you know what the ground reality is and what the challenges are. And you know the people on the ground.
Absolutely. So that's the crux. I can say it.
Thanks, Rajendra.
Yeah.
You covered
Sorry.
it beautifully well. In fact, you have done my job much effectively. I only need to put a factor before the numbers you gave and repeat that. So let me not do that. And quickly summarize what he said and what I have always faced or felt in a little mythological statement, that in the kind of scenario what you have defined and what most of us are living in, the HR's only focus is to create, nurture and destroy in time. In other words, do the job of Lord Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh put together. And that's what Rajender and me are struggling all throughout. That's how I can summarize what we are in. Am I right?
But Ajay, I think we still want to know.
Sorry?
Ajay, I think we still want to know, in a industry that's growing, has immense potential and faces huge headwinds, how have you held your organization together and how have you yet grown the business?
Clear connectivity with people is very important. Now, let's look at it. Industry is growing. Organizations are growing. You define the business parameters. Rajender defined the challenge, 80 to 140%. Maybe people here will get shocked, but when you talk to insurance industry, you'll say, Khali 140%. That's what is going to happen tomorrow. But why is this 140? Are the people running away? Are the people not adapt to this, or people are being driven away? And it's a mixture of all that. It's a mixture of problem which gets created at the time of sourcing. You need 2 hands and 2 legs for a person to sell life insurance, because in any way he has to go and push down the other's throat. These are the problems which are being corrected. That person burns out in next 3 months, he can't get his target. Next 6 months, tack is another mail. Thank you very much for being with us for 6 months. So that's the problem which we are addressing. And I guess both of us are into the same shape, where we are building how this person will deliver instead of 6 months for 12 months.
Okay, so in the sense you're increasing the lung power.
Right. 1 second. And also the same point which addresses Adil little while ago quoted, there is a research for 2035, people would have 35 jobs. Adil, research is a big business. The same topic you can flip on its head, and tomorrow there will be a research, and I can bet it would be there, that by 2035, perhaps we will go back to the loyalty era, when people first will ask, did you serve at least 5 years the previous company?
No, that's a point of
that
view.
That has already started in, let's look at it.
Point of view. What one was saying is, you know, when we are talking about strategic workforce planning, and everyone is talking about strategic workforce planning, we need to understand that we, in the times that we are talking about, need to identify that who are the core value drivers in your organization. And then the so-called strategic HR, give, get, grow, guard, which is what all HR guys do any point of time in the world. They don't do anything beyond give, get, grow, and guard. So then those 30 or 35% people only who are your critical drivers, how do we guard them? How do we grow them? And then have a system to ensure that the rest of the people systematically are outsetted from the organization, so that there is an entire process built where if they don't go out, you literally end up pushing them out. So because the value chain of your enterprise is going to be driven far more differently than what it was, because what got us here is not going to take us where we want to go. So we will have to look at it differently. We live in a world, and you referred to loyalty, we currently are living in the world where loyalty is synonymous with mediocrity. You are loyal because no one is searching for you. You are loyal because no one is trying to get for you. Like that, you have continued in the enterprise. Year on year, time has passed, and now 35 years have passed, and you want those 35 years to be labeled as loyalty. Loyalty is only when you are hugely in demand, there are 5 guys running after you, and you say, no, I am so engaged to the enterprise that I don't want to leave it.
Okay. Monish, I want to come to you. We briefly spoke about this earlier this week. And I clearly, and I think all of you want examples. You don't have to name companies. We've heard of fit to purpose, stages in life of an organization, different things to be done at different times for an organization as far as people are concerned to grow the business. How have instances you've seen of how organizations have done this, kept their people nimble and fresh for the long haul? Nice. In a sense, Ajay talked about increasing lung power, stamina. Tell us about that.
Lovely. So that's a difficult one, right? But the starting point I've seen of creating nimbleness in the organization for the changing environment is really at 2 levels, right? First, at the boardroom, the management room, where the CEO and the team reporting into the CEO are aligned to the value that people bring. And I've constantly seen that's the part that there is rare alignment. In fact, many a time, the HR and how a CEO or perhaps the others see how the business needs to be run. To your question that who owns the attrition, of course business owns the attrition. But the problem starts in this room rather than downwards. And I want to give you some examples as to what companies have done, and I've seen environments that have done it. So one example I can give you the fact that how, this is a power company, and what they realized, this company is a private company, is one of the best that there is, and the HR director and the CEO were seeing that this company is kind of, it used to be great, but it's not going to continue like this because as we become more global, more and more players come, we have to find a way to change it. However, this company, it became somewhat self-satisfied with where things were and so on. And I remember the decision made by this team was, why don't we take our entire team and go to Singapore and see the Singapore power? Okay, let's move around the factory, let's talk to the senior team and see how a world-class power company operates. I was part of that team to facilitate, and what was stunning for this group was they thought of parameters that they held very dear. This particular company said, this company in Singapore said, oh, that we just done and dusted 10, 20 years ago. We don't really worry about it. Now we are thinking like this. It opened their mind to see the power of how to think differently. And when they came back, they started considering the power of how do we organize ourselves and how do we take the talent to think differently than they were thinking right now. So I think that's an example. Another example in that I could say, this is again an Indian company. They have built a practice, and this is a complete success of the HR leader here, was to create a nimble organization. The CEO and the direct reports, they sit down every 2 to 3 years to relook at their structure. Okay, but in a very interesting way. They put up the structure and they say, is this the best structure today? Question number 1. Question 2, are we the best people to sit in this structure? Are we the best guys? Hand on heart, are we the best people? Right? And from that process onwards, they recalibrate expectations of each other in all the parameters that you would think how business needs to run, and then sort of roll them out. So some great examples there, including I've seen how an HR director was not finding enough traction with these ideas. So how he got different people to speak to this group, created experiences that this team could see the value of how people need to manage differently. So I think that's one thing. The second end is the kind of thing what you talked about on it, is the fact that the movement about employees and connection with the customer. The examples have been plenty where how organization creates those conditions so that employees can do what it takes to create the right thing for customer. And really, it's about how do we give power back to the ground. So to your insurance company, and I have worked with few, we have seen branches, for example, where the branch, the head of that branch is able to create a very different environment by giving 2 very specific dimensions which others don't. Okay, they would be giving high clarity to people as to absolutely sharp, as like machli ki aankh kehte hain na, bilkul sharp. What is it that we are expecting you in sales and the agents to do, for example?
Leadership.
Absolutely. And we found that those branches were able to create a very different environment than everywhere else, and the retentions were much better. The results were significantly higher there. And all that happened, the companies created an environment around saying, this is what we expect out of you. We give you this freedom to operate around it. So these are some quick examples that I can cite as a way to create a nimbleness in environments across the top as well as the bottom.
Suresh, if you allow me, I think
yes.
One example for the participant, I don't want to name the company, it's actually available on the net. One of the good manufacturing companies, in the auto sector, the CEO and the chairman, he takes his 125 top people to, let's say, Harvard or the Oxford kind of places with spouses. And on the first day, the keynote session that he actually talks about, that you are here, be yourself, enjoy. I don't expect anything from you when you go back. Now imagine that nimbleness. Can we imagine? Otherwise, we're talking about the ROI in terms of the the training expenses that we have. Because a lot of sessions happening these days in terms of how do we calculate the ROI. But look at this, magnanimity in terms of what you think. And imagine these people, thinking that there is nothing expected from us. But that actually means that when they go back, they really, that 8th habit of Stephen Covey. You don't have to instruct somebody to work for you. They want to work for you. Yeah. Correct? I think the number of examples like that where we can actually create an impact. Okay. Yep.
Do we have, I think we have time, unless we're standing between you and dinner. Okay. There's one question that came up in some of our conversations. Maybe is a little controversial, maybe is a little depressing, but it's to all of you. Okay. Is there a struggle for identity in the HR function? It's an existential question. If there is, have you seen a change? And how do we transition out of that to be business effective? Have you seen that transition happen? Anyone.
I will take it. I think it will be a lie to say there isn't. I think there is a struggle for identity in the HR function.
So just before that, anybody in the audience think that there is a struggle for identity? There's an existential question for HR?
Those who believe yes, please raise your hand. There is a struggle.
There is, barely seems like there
That's
is.
That's the answer, actually. 3, 4 hands went up. Okay. So you.
I do think that there is. I think, HR function likes to keep the organization clean while the CEO wants the organization working. So what I mean by that, for example, is HR function tries to treat all employee segments, to the point that Adil said, there are a few people and there are a lot of people. And a lot of people who need to be running like a manual to, borrow the manufacturing analogy. And some of the people who need to be creative and invent the future, to borrow the analogy from the future. I think the HR function sometimes tries to paint everything in the same brush. I think therefore, there is a need, and HR people and leaders are very nicely coming out and admitting it, first instance, and saying that we cannot paint everybody with the same brush. We need to differentiate.
Okay.
I think that's one thing that they are doing. And therefore, when they are coming out with it, they have to shed some of those things that they have to make their organization clean, predictable, and so on. I think it's more important to keep the organization working and growing rather than clean and predictable. I think that's one of the big changes that HR functions
Anand,
and leaders are navigating.
Thank you. I'm being badgered saying that it's time for Q&A.
Yeah, that's screen
Sure.
Okay, maybe I read the time wrong. So, questions open. Request, state your name if you want your organization and state your question. If it's to a particular panelist, do that. And something I learned from Sukumar earlier in the day, no opinions and views, please state your question. Lady in front, I think she should go first. Last time she had to wait 15 minutes for the mic.
Yeah.
Myself, Dr. Anupama Raina. I'm from IBS Gurgaon. I'm sorry I have a bad throat. But I have 2 questions. One, I was very shocked to hear the definition of loyalty from Mr. Adil, because I completed my 13 years, in the organization I work for. And really, it's very, very difficult for HR professionals to find out whether somebody is after you, and then, or, generally you have spent the number of years in organization, probably there's nobody after you or something. So what, according to you, could be the top 3 measures of loyalty, except spending the number of years and all, because probably you have changed the definition of that. So what, according to you, could be the top 3 measures of loyalty? Actually, this question is for myself, Sure.
So I'll help you answer your question. Number 1 is, have you consistently been contributing to the value journey of the organization? Number 1. Number 2, are you someone who has, at least in a reasonable period of time, have an opportunity to discuss about your career change with any other enterprise other than the one you're working in? Discuss. I'm not saying leave. Discuss. At least, has someone approached you to say, would you like to take a career change? You may say, no, I don't want to. That's a very good sign of it.
Okay.
And the third is, are you continuing with full engagement to do that job? Or are you actually every day finding it difficult to go to the organization where you worked for 35 years?
Okay. You made it more dicey, in fact, for me. I have another part of the question. That's probably for culture. You know, in every conference, wherever go, probably what is being told by Mr. Suresh, that there's a big difference between policies and culture. Policy is somewhat which is written, and culture is something which we feel. But you know, in every, probably in every conference, we've been saying that just because this
What's
is
your
happening...
question?
Yeah, that's what my question is. I'm just coming to question. You know, in every conference, then we've been saying that because it is happening to you, maybe your culture is not good, maybe you're not working on culture. But then it's very difficult for HR professionals ultimately to understand what actually culture is all about if they start working on that, right? So what could be, like, if you talk about building a good culture, where should we start it from?
Is this to Adil or everybody?
This probably first could be to Adil and then to anybody.
Adil, you're the target.
Loyalty to culture, it is Adil's area.
Yeah, I think being an OD professional, somehow I want to believe culture is my area, though I personally believe that culture is a business area, all right? Simply defined, culture is how things get done here. Whenever you go to an enterprise and answer this question, how do things get done here? And is the culture allowing anything to happen which is not in the same pattern as things get done out here? That's the culture of the enterprise. How do you go around changing it? It is a long drawn journey. Culture comprises of all the artifacts, systems, processes, beliefs. The problem I see in organizations wherever we do OD is that culture is much more a limiting factor than a facilitating factor. Culture becomes the source of why things cannot be done in an enterprise rather than how things can be done in the enterprise. And that's where the problem is, that we need to be starting to influence only one element in how things get done, and that's flexibility. Can you build in a flexibility? Can the culture, instead of being only exclusive, can we make the culture inclusive? Once culture is inclusive, it will lead to change.
I think I would, I think from a HR point of view, it is important to specify, as you're rightly asking, correct? We've done a little exercise about 3 months back in the organization, and we are continuing with that. We defined culture, for about 14,000 employees, and we actually want to tweak a little bit. I'm not saying we change the culture, correct? Because it will actually evolve. So the organization's firm beliefs and faith supported by the people's behavior, correct? That's the definition of the culture that we defined. And of course, I think the likes of, let's say, the BCG and McKinsey actually supported us on that to define that one line. The second, if you look at, there has to be proof of what you are trying to say. In fact, in our quality word, we say, prove it with the lie, L-I-E, leadership, information, and example. So what is the proof that, what I'm saying in terms of the podium speech versus practice, correct? So if you look at, my friends will agree from life insurance industry, last year we degrew in the new business by 24%, and there was a surprise to the players around because we were growing, correct? But last year we took conscious call, and there was a degrowth of 24% on the top line, which is about 600 crores of rupees, correct? Now, and in spite of that, one more fact, we paid 100% bonuses to the employees, the leaders. Oh. Now, why? Is we took conscious call at the start of the year, last year, that we will not go after the top line by somehow selling, which is a mis-selling in the insurance industry. We will focus on, as a part of our culture building process, on the governance and the values of the organization and the quality. So we did not take the business which was on the table to the extent of about 500 crores because it was not falling within the definition of the culture that we defined last year. I think, somewhere when you go back to your organization and you tell HR folks or of course other employees that this is what culture means to us, you have to be specific.
Yeah, but culture and values are two different elements to the whole.
Okay, gentlemen.
No, not little, totally. Let me tell you one thing.
Adil, there's a gentleman waiting to ask a question.
All right, sure.
Culture will, sorry. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Vinod and I represent AdLabs Entertainment. We're a new entertainment format in the city. My question essentially is about engagement. We are an organization where probably the average age is about 25, and all the symptoms that the panelists talked about in terms of people being engaged and wanting change exists with our organization. I just wanted to give you a small little background before one of the panelists could answer a question. Adil has been to our format, so he can probably take a lead there. We are multiple industries in one organization. We're an engineering format, we're an entertainment format, we're food and beverage, we're retail. And what happens is with that, leaders who come into the organizations bring in cultures that are prevalent and established in that culture. We have a great advantage of being a new organization. We can learn from all the experiences that you collectively have. So we're looking at engagement as a core element of giving more value to the employee in terms of how they can contribute and be more discretionary. We run